Jak se mi Viktorovení snažili zabránit tomu, no. Tomu Viktor VGU od Nekryta, podíváme se, ne?
Well, it is the calm before the storm. So let's have a look at a storm that happened last month. Continuing the streak of making too many videos related to Arcane.
Jako je tady u mě v chatu si prostě furt někdo chodil stěžovat na ten Viktor Rework, no. To už je co říct, more.
There is a topic I wanted to talk about from the very beginning. The mystery Arcane VGU that over time became less and less of a mystery.
Jako můj názor znáte, mně to nepřijde až tak hrozný, jenom prostě jeho postava vypadá jako žensky. A vchodí, jak kdyby mělo anální kolik v prdě, no. Ta jeho chůze a ta postava je taková zvláštní, no. Musím jako uznat, že některé ty staré skiny vypadaly líp než ty nový, no, na něj.
As Viktor's character in the show began to change. And it didn't take long before Arcane gave him entirely new appearance. As well as new visuals for the spells, new characteristics, new quotes, and really, it's just a totally different character now. So from the beginning, with such a drastic VGU heading to League,
Šivara furt nic, no, už před 5 rokama to oznámili a nic.
it was obvious there would be one place on the internet that wouldn't stay quiet. And of course, we are talking about the Viktor mains subreddit. Place dedicated to loving the machine Herald, which would soon have to be rebranded to loving the Herald of the Arcane. So, before we talk about everything that happened around the internet, as well as in that place, first, let's have a look at what happened to Viktor. Specifically, let's start with the visual side. The old Viktor was your classic fantasy sci-fi cyborg villain, who wasn't really a villain. He was definitely popular among the...
Nebyl to villain, on jenom vypadal jako villain, ale přitom byl good guy. Na druhou stranu Jace byl zase takový jako víc villain, ale vypadal se jako good guy, no. Takový dva protiklady, no, který vlastně jeden vypadá jako good guy, ale přitom je bad guy a zase naopak.
The people who liked a bit more sci-fi.
A v Arcaneu to bylo úplně jinak, no, mezi něma.
In their game, he definitely had a certain power fantasy to him, and he had a unique kit that was quite niche. And that is kinda where the positives end, because the truth is, Viktor also had a lot of limitations around him. First of all, because his kit is niche, it's not that popular. This is actually a massive point that a lot of people pretend not to see. Yeah, sure, Riot is taking away a really cool character, we can all rage about that. I am totally on board there. But let's not pretend like the old Viktor was the face of League of Legends. And that's not because Riot wouldn't want to put him...
To byl jako většinu let, co v té hře byl, tak byl fakt jako zapomenutý a nehranej a nikdo prostě se ho nedotkl, kdy ho přidali do lolka. V Season 2, Season 1 možná, jestli v té hře byl třeba těch 12-13 let, tak jako 10 let ho nikdo nehrál prostě a občas se objevil v proplay, občas solo queue, ale jako fakt jako extrémně jako neviditelný čem, že?
Him there as the face of the game. It's more because why would they do that? He had 4% pick rate.
No.
So in general, old Viktor just wasn't popular. That's both gameplay-wise and, unfortunately, also visually. At least, based on the stats. But also, despite having really cool power fantasy, there wasn't much Riot could do with it. That look just mimicked the million other cyborg villains that already exist.
Vypadá jak z Warhammeru prostě nějaký cyborg, no.
So it was hard to put Viktor anywhere without people calling him Dr. Doom. So even on the visual side, Riot had to break the mold somehow, which is why they went for drastic changes. I'm not saying this is a good thing, I'm just telling you why Riot decided to do this. If you ask me, the one thing I really don't like about the situation is the lore. And it's probably not because of...
Ten lore mu předělali tak, že je prostě doslova 1:1 k Arcaneu, no. Třeba Jaceův lore nechali furt ten starý. Nevím, proč změnili lore jednoho čempa k Arcaneu, když všichni ostatní ho mají furt starý. Jakože...
What you're thinking. You see, as some of you may know, the old Viktor was my favorite champion in this game, lore-wise. This was a...
Jako zase tak mega dobrý ten lore jeho nebyl. Určitě to byl jeden z těch jako lepších, ale že bych řekl, že byl až tak dobrý, že byl prostě nejlepší ze všech. To bych zase neřekl. On společně s Jacem jsou jakoby taková dvojice, která měla jako jedny z těch nejlepších lorů, to jako jo. A že by to bylo až tak mega dobrý, že bych řekl, že to je nejlepší, to zase ne.
The guy that did some really shady things with the best intentions. He was genuinely just helping people, even though people were scared of the help. I just loved his story. So when it was revealed that this would get retconned, Yeah, I was sad. But what
Je to škoda, no.
Riot did is
Jako furt na to máte lore video na příběhu na Historii, ale je takový smutný, no, že zase, že to nahradí, no, vlastně. A tak kvůli Arcaneu to chápu, no.
that they took this old Viktor and they replaced him with an entirely new one. The thing is,
A že má tu postavu prostě takovou divnou, jakože má, že má takový strašně úzký pas, jak kdyby nosil korzet. Je to přijde takové zvláštní, no.
the new Viktor is great. I know, especially in the Viktor mains community, this is gonna be a hot take. But it feels like they took something which was awesome, they took it away, and they replaced it with something awesome that's different. And this is the point where Riot screwed up. In my very subjective opinion, the new VGU is great, but that VGU is not Viktor. Think of it like this. If the new Viktor came out as an
Je to prostě úplně jiná postava, no. Tak se to dá shrnout. Když si vemeš Rework Aatroxe, jo, tak ten novej Aatrox není vůbec podobný tomu starému, jakože gameplayově. Je to byl úplně jiný gameplay. U toho Viktora zase je ten gameplay úplně stejný, ale ten charakter je úplně jiný, no.
entirely new champion, I don't think anyone would dislike that. But the truth is, that did not happen. So while the new Viktor works, it totally works as a separate thing, not as something that replaced something that was here before. You see, in the past, this is actually
Třeba i ten starý Skarner jako mi přišel třeba lepší, no, to jako říkám pořád, ale starý Skarner a starý lore jeho, nebo takhle, starý gameplay Skarnera asi nebyl lepší, to asi ne. Ten čem byl úplně mrtvý ve hře. Teďka je z něho docela solidní jako tank jungler, to jo, ale jeho lore teda starý byl o dost lepší než ten nový, no. To je tak strašně generický lore toho Skarnera novýho, že jako a nevím ani proč, hlavně proč. To s těma krystalama dávalo takovej smysl, hlavně pro Arcane. Ty krystaly v tom Arcaneu, když jsi jako věděl, že ty krystaly jsou prostě jako brakerní doslova, jo, že to jsou jejich jako mysli a jejich duše, tak to mělo daleko větší hloubku ty krystaly v Arcaneu. A teďka, když už jako to nejsou ti brakerní, tak to prostě nic neznamená. To nijak nezměnilo ten Arcane, že to Skarnera předělali. Proč by to dělali, jako?
is something Riot tanked a lot of hate for. If you go back to previous VGUs, you might notice that way back at the beginning, Riot was a lot more drastic with them. What they did is that they took an old champion and they just replaced it with something.
No, jako jo, no. Prostě ho úplně kompletně nahradili něčím jiným. Takže Kaylu taky hodně změnili, no. Ale u té Kayle to nebylo tak jako tak drastický. Hlavně u toho Aatroxe mi to přišlo teda strašně jiný, no. Že tam to bylo fakt komplet jiný champ úplně. A ještě pár takových by se našlo.
Something new. Look at Trundle. What the heck is the old one? But the most infamous case when it comes to VGUs was Aatrox. The old
Ano, přesně o to, o čem mluvím, no. Ten starý Aatrox bylo úplně něco jiného gameplayově.
Aatrox was extremely niche, and that is because
To byl doslova prostě delete jednoho champa a dali tam novýho.
of his gameplay. It was all about swapping stances, which was apparently really hard to balance, and it was really fun to play if you were really
Urgot taky, no, ten jako jo, no. Ale teda jako musím říct, že ten novej je určitě lepší jak starý Aatrox a Urgot asi taky.
weird. But those people actually existed. And so when Riot took the old Aatrox and they just totally remade him, meaning the entire kit was now different, the old players were really sad.
Nebo Morde, no. Morde taky úplně novej, no. A taky je ale lepší, že jo? Většinou ty reworky jako fakt udělali líp než ty starý champy. To byly fakt takový jako Morde byl takový goofy prostě debilek, vole, s armorem, který byl víc mage, než někdo do tě mlátí, vole, palcátem, že jo? Jako většina těch reworků jsou asi lepší než ty starý champové, no. Pantheon až tak tolik nezměnili, ne? Ten zůstal docela stejný. Actually lepší. Pantheon je oproti tomu starému v podstatě stejný, ale silnější, jakože víc OP. Že toho dokáže daleko víc ta postava a dá větší damage.
And Riot stated many times that, looking back, yeah, that VGU was a little bit too drastic and they took away something that could have stayed in the game. So going forward, Riot always said, yeah, when we do VGUs, we will never take away the core thing that makes the champion who they are. Fast forward to Viktor, and technically they did that. That's because a Viktor's kit is exactly the same. On the gameplay side, nothing changed. And that's because apparently Riot went to different Viktor mains and they asked about, hey, what changes would you like to see? And every time they changed something, Viktor mains didn't like it, so in the end, the VGU just didn't do anything with the gameplay. But visually, it is still an entirely new champion. And that is why, in the past, we used to get traditional skins. We got these whenever a champion got a
Ty vole, karma, kámo. Jsem neviděl tak 10 let tady ten obrázek.
VGU so big, it was essentially a totally different champion. Which is what happened now! So where is the traditional skin? Yes, I absolutely believe Viktor should have gotten a traditional skin. There has never been a better case for that skin.
Pravda, vždycky když vydali Rework, tak tomu většinou i dali traditional skin. Jakože skin, který vypadal podobně jak ten předešlej champ, anebo jako něco, co by to mohlo být. Jako třeba u Volibera, když mu dali toho 1000krát probohnutýho medvěda, že jo? Který to původně měl být, actually. Původně Volibear měl být ten 1000krát probohnutý medvěd, ale oni si řekli, že, nebo uvědomili si, že nevypadá moc jako Volibear, že jo, jako sněžný medvěd, tak to předělali na toho sněžnýho, actually. Tak něco takového mohlo být možná i z Viktora, bro.
To make sense. So why didn't we get it? I have no idea. In fact, if we did get a traditional skin of the old Viktor for the new one, I am pretty sure this
možná kvůli loreu, nevím.
Our drama wouldn't even happen. But alas, if you have a look at what the fans made, yep, some of them are really clever and they even turned the prototype Viktor skin into something that at least resembles something more from the show. So at least if we're not getting the old Viktor, maybe we would get something else that we have more of an emotional attachment to. After which, it was also stated that apparently Riot was removing the old Viktor so that the new one would get rid of some of the inconsistencies. And here's the thing! If you remember the old Viktor, yeah, those were some strange times. In case you don't know what we're talking about, the old Viktor had a really rare problem with his lore in this universe. It was simply that nobody knew what his character was about. There were too many writers giving him too many takes. There was the side of Viktor being a savior who was helping people doing some shady things. At the same time, there was an entire religion that formed around him. That used to be the glorious evolution. But Viktor didn't care. He was just helping people and he let the religious people do whatever they wanted. All of this mostly happened in the written lore. But then also Legends of Runeterra came out with their own version of Viktor where he was just a lot more evil. And he wasn't doing stuff to help people, but rather to just brutally evolve them against their own will. And looking back, I think there were so many different versions of Viktor's lore because from the beginning they knew that eventually he would get retconned. I mean, Arcane was in the making for almost a decade. They knew that the change would come one day. And so it's possible that just no one cared. And everyone wanted to make Viktor cool. So yeah, Riot, I'll give you that. You did win by removing inconsistency.
Zase jako oni neměli celý Arcane jako naplánovaný už takhle jako 10 let dozadu. Třeba zhruba 2 roky před Arcanem 2 oznámili nějak, nebo nějaký ten creator Arcaneu oznámil, že právě jakoby dopsali finále Arcaneu, něco takového oznámili 2 roky dozadu. Takže oni to jako neměli úplně celý, jo, ale měli třeba, si myslím, že ty měli třeba 3/4. Že měli dopředu vymyšlený příběh Arcaneu 1 a polovinu druhé řady třeba, ale nemyslím si, že to i z toho Viktora měli takhle naplánovanýho ještě. No, nevím, těžko říct. Možná měli, přece jenom ten Viktor byl vlastně i v té jedničce, že jo? Ta postava, o které jsme nevěděli, kdo to je, že?
By retconning stuff again, but at least be consistent with the new form he has now. See, if you have a look at the model he has in-game now, it's totally different from what was shown in the show. In-game, his mask actually looks like a face. It even has eyebrows and faked eyelashes. In the show, it is more of a body horror.
A tak zase ve hře to musí mít nějaký jiný model než v seriálu, že jo? To prostě nejde takhle.
Design. The mask is not supposed to look human. That's the point. The eye holes are not even proper eyes. That's why...
Nemyslíš, že to měli vymýšlení v té první sérii? Jako já nevím, myslíš, že by tam dávali takhle tu tajemnou postavu, aniž by věděli, kdo to nakonec bude? Já si myslím, že asi měli, ale přece jenom on mu dal tu runu tomu Jaceovi, že jo? A ta runa pak jakoby, on tu runu měl celý první Arcane, ten Jace, tak bylo by jako divný, kdyby to neměli vymyšlení dopředu, no.
In game he just looks like a freak. But outside of that design, which to many people is definitely gonna be a hit or miss, especially since the model is way thinner than what people were used to with the old Viktor, I believe the scientific term people use for this is
Zkrátka prostě ten scénář k tomu Arcaneu 2 neměli hotový ještě 2 roky předtím. To psali někam na Twitter nebo něco takového. Takže celý ten Arcane vymyšlený dopředu neměli, ale asi velkou část z něho měli, tak bych to řekl. Už třeba před 8 rokama.
Winkification? And yes, it is a massive change from the old one. And well, that goes for all the skins too. Not only did all the skins have to fit an entirely new silhouette now, but also this made it so that some of the skins didn't really make sense in the new setting. For example, if you want to make a more thinner and more body-shaped version of the Deathsworn skin, you would get that. Besides that, there was also the new upgrade to the High Noon skin. And yeah, both of these are not great. I mean, if you bought the old one...
Jako tady je strašný downgrade, že tady nemáš ten orb svítící, že? U toho starého. Teda u toho nového, takhle. Ten starý prostě vypadá líp, protože má ty orby tam. A taky jakože je takovej masivnější, no, že to je prostě nabušenější, no. Ten novej Viktor je takový hubeňour. Což jako neříkám, že by neměl být, jo, ale možná je až moc hubenej, zase.
You are now definitely getting something else with a totally different vibe. So now there was a bit more heat coming from the skins too. But to throw in
On má takový nepřirozený posture mi přijde, že on má strašně jako on je prohnutý v zádech, ten Viktor. Vidíš, on je takový prostě prohnutý dozadu, ne? Takhle lidi jako nejsou, ne? Takhle jako kocky prohnutí dozadu. Tenhle ten vypadá jako přirozeně, že je takovej lehce jako ohnutý dopředu, jak asi lidi jako jsou, že jo? A tady je prostě takovej, vole, jak pravítko, akorát ještě zahnutý dozadu, vole. Takže takhle a takhle ramena, vole, a takhle prostě je, no. Nevím.
So now there was a bit more heat.
Víš, jak má ty ruce za zády, on ty ruce má rovně dolů, on je má prostě svišený a přitom je má za zády tím, jak je prohlej. Já nevím, kdyby ho udělali trochu jako širšího, říkám, že musí být špekou, no, ale mohl by být aspoň trochu podobně široký nebo trochu široký jako ten starý. A nebyl tak degenský prohnutý dozadu, to by vypadalo daleko líp, ne? A nevím, proč ten plášť musí mít takhle rozdělený, to mi se mi jaký nelíbí teda. A to už jsme tady řešili, kámo, třeba 1000krát, že? Taky.
Skins too. But to throw in even more of an insult to the Viktor mains, there was also a legendary skin. And that
ten se mi vůbec nelíbil, třeba ten je tak 4 z 10 skin.
Legendary skin?
Taký andělíček, no.
Was a mess. I mean, what is it? Is this based on the show? I guess so, because the quotes suggest that.
Nebo asi, já nevím, vypadá jak ten Viktor z těch flashbacků, nebo z těch flashbacků, z toho Arkanového světa, nebo jak to říct.
But where have we seen this in the show? It's not the human version that everyone knows from him just shepherding people around Zaun, but it's also not the celestial version of him that we would know from when he was essentially a celestial. Also, what is the arm? Is the arm sky? I don't know, you tell me. Which is why this skin is so weird. It is not something directly from the show, so Arcane fans are not sold on it. But also it has nothing to do with the other version of Viktor, so it's kind of for nobody. But hey, it's a legendary skin that could have been at least a traditional skin or something like that. Yes, I do believe if the legendary skin was a traditional skin that was still sold, which resembled the old Viktor, people still would be happier. But there would be a lot
jako nevypadá špatně, ta ruka vypadá celá solidně, že?
of memes about right now selling traditional skins, so you know.
Nevím, proč má ty bílý vlasy, no.
What? I'm glad they didn't do that. And thus, with a totally different character, with a totally different story and a totally different vibe, the Viktor mains had enough. And so, the war began. And as it is every time around video games, and especially anything bad that happens around League of Legends, it all has to start with boycotts. Would a boycott work? As you know, with Shen mains and Expetu boycotted Shen for a month, I think.
Kakan 18.
They got some feedback with fixing a bug. Can't we do the same? I do think they will change something, but I doubt they will cancel the VGU. I don't think so, because the Viktor main community is fractured. A lot of people, especially those who didn't play him before Arcane, actually like his new design. If we really want a change, we need to boycott the new Viktor. This may seem stupid to say.
Okay, kult, kámo.
But if you really love the real old Viktor like I do, and you don't want them to go through with the change, you have to totally abandon playing him as a champion in the game. Every Viktor main, and I know there aren't as many as most other champions, has to abandon the disrespectful filth they've turned him into. The main reason why they are reworking him is because Riot considered Viktor to be in a similar situation to Skarner pre-rework. Neglected, extremely unpopular, and obsolete. Yeah, I'm sure it has nothing to do with Arcane. Which evidently they don't even really know that themselves, because this rework isn't even a rework. So, from this little post you can see that, yes, at least some calls to action were somewhat civilized. But here's the truth. As we all know, boycotts never work. We've learned many times is that people will simply decide what they do and don't.
Ale nějak tady skinech něco změnili, myslím, že nedávno, ne? Na té Arcane Vi změnili, jak byla strašně světlá, tak ji stmavili, protože lidi na to nadávali, že jo?
Like on their own. Making posts on the internet has never done anything, unfortunately. We have learned this from Ari and we have learned this from Jin. So, how did people vote? What happened?
Jako problém je stejně, že jo, lidi budou nadávat úplně na všecko, kdyby udělali sebe lepší věc, tak na to se budou nadávat lidi. A i na Arcane prostě někdo nadává, vole.
To Viktor's play rate after the VG.
Myslíš, že prostě nechat bárkovat asi ty, co jsou nespokojení a oni si prostě zvyknou časem, no, nejde nic. Jako vždycky se na všechno nadávalo a nadávat se bude, že?
Yep.
Aha.
It used to be about 4%, and then it got to 25%. Now, that was the peak after Arcane released. So obviously people got really excited to play him after the show. But realistically, where are the numbers now that the hype died?
Kámo, a takovýhle playrate neměl nikdy v životě, prostě si myslím, ne? Za celou dobu, co existuje, tak musel mít tak pod ty 4%, ne-li míň ještě, jako daleko míň. To fakt prostě nepotkal, já jsem třeba zapomněl, že ten čem existuje, vole, v pár let, co jsem tu hru hrál, si myslím. Třeba 3 roky jsem hrál a hele, co to je za čempa, to jsem neviděl. Aha, Viktor, OK. Jakože fakt, nikdo si na to nevzpomněl, ani nevěděl nikdo skoro, že to existuje.
Down. Well, it is still double of what it was before. Well, in most cases it tripled.
Tak furt to je okolo 11%, asi zhruba, 10-12.
Because now we are at about 12%, which is quite huge. This is not what happens when we get just a little bit of new hype for a champion. The numbers show the VGU was a success. And this is what started a bit of a discussion. Sure, around the Viktor main subreddit there was still a lot of hate, which totally makes sense. That is a place for people who specifically loved the old version. But if you have a look at the numbers now, there is a lot of new Viktor mains who like the new version. And comparatively, there is a lot more people of the new ones.
Já jsem ho párkrát hrál teďka, z toho vyšly nějaký videa, že jo, na YouTube a docela v pohodě. Ten model by mohl být asi trošku lepší, nevím, ten novej model je takový zvláštní, ale to je docela pohodě. Skarner na to byl ještě hůř, to určitě asi jo, no. To byl fakt jako těžce nehraný champ.
But what's weird about that is that on the gameplay side, nothing changed. And even pros mentioned that even after Arcane and after the VGU, there is no real new reason to play the champion. So all of this popularity only comes from the visual side. But that is not something certain members of the Viktor mains would like. The boycotts should work, and they would work with enough effort. And so everything got turned up. Now, multiple creators started getting emails from the Viktor mains. Here's mine! Yep, I also got one.
I am from Viktor mains community and we would like to ask for your help. Viktorův starý charakter bude kompletně smazán z lolka. A Viktor hráči kvůli tomu trpí. No jo no.
Hi, I am here from Viktor mains community and we would like to ask for your help. As a YouTuber, you are one of the voices of the League community. Viktor old character is being completely erased from League, and the original Viktor players are suffering with it. Today is release his PBE feedback video, and would mean a lot if you could show support towards us. The new Viktor is erasing a archetype in League, and killing down everything about Viktor. Hey, here's my support. I agree with this. You're right, they shouldn't have removed the old Viktor, but I'm pretty sure everyone is powerless in this situation. But it turns out, while these emails were sent out at the beginning of November, they were a setup for something bigger, something greater, something with unmatched power. A community letter from Viktor Mains to Riot Games. This is a whopping thesis of a work on Viktor. Honestly, big props to the Viktor Mains who put this together. It's quite stunning, and I'll give you this. I don't think there is another League community that puts this much effort into anything. Can you imagine the R remains putting this together? But I don't want to overhype this too much, because at the end of the day, this is mostly a big list of links to articles and videos. Now, this letter was actually put together a month after the original emails. And since there is a lot of links to different videos and articles here, which likely gives this letter a better claim to the outcry around the VGU, it kinda makes it seem like the Viktor Mains were emailing people to get as many videos out as possible so that they could put all the links here. That's just my opinion. But now, as part of this letter, people could actually send in their opinions. So that Riot could potentially read what the community thinks. And of course, they also had their own requests for the VGU. Those being, very specifically, cancel the visual rework of classic and other old skins, and release Arcane Viktor as a legendary skin along Arcane Survivor. Now, the second request?
Savior, huh?
Yeah, I can see that. Canceling the VGU? Buddy, we're getting 3 champions per year and 2 VGUs. I don't want to live off of sand. But alas, the letter did not do
Kdyby to cancelnuli, kámo, tak na tom prodělají jako docela jako hodně peněz a času, co?
much. And so Viktor Mains went back to posting really funny memes. And so
this fucking sucks actually. Literal coolest thing ever.
So the subreddit was flooded with images and jokes, which in my opinion is still the best kind of boycotting. But now this entire situation started picking up attention, which also brought in what in the industry we call Reddit tourists. It's the people who just suddenly like something and they jump around the different communities around the internet. But while for the most part subreddits tend to be echo chambers, in Viktor's case, those tourists were people who liked Arcane. And therefore they liked the new Viktor more. Which is how a complete chaos was unleashed upon the Viktor main subreddit. You had more and more people coming in, becoming new Viktor mains who...
Jako když asi teďka úplně novýmu jako člověku ukážeš starého Viktora a novýho Viktora, tak ten nový asi stejně bude jako lepší, co? Ten nový furt vypadá trošku jako degeňácky s tou jeho postavou a s tím jeho zvláštním jako prohnutýma zádama a kolíkem v řiti. Ale furt je asi víc cool, no. Hlavně má víc hlášek a jako víc vole pixelů.
Who actually liked the VGU more. And so more and more debates started sprouting out of this. But what's the most surprising is that as this new kind of a community started forming around the Viktor main subreddit, which was essentially just the old Viktor lovers and the new Viktor lovers bonding together, somehow, and I cannot understand how this happened, people started being civil around the VGU. You have to understand, this subreddit is specifically for people dedicated to Viktor, and specifically the dedicated fans of League Viktor. They love and got invested in the Viktor they knew and his appearance. Any rewrite will face criticism as it changes what's beloved. Unfortunately, a rewrite creates new audiences that sometimes isn't for the original one anymore. It's not what they loved. Reddit is also just a negative place that kind of thrives off of extremely hard takes and being emotional and irrational. It's like Twitter. Unfortunately, just understand that you're seeing people watch something they love be forever changed and the death of what they loved. Have patience and kindness. Wow. Okay, the truth is there is also a lot of old Viktor mains who really hate the new community, and so there is currently a bit of a civil war happening.
Samozřejmě, no, tak co jiného by taky dělali, že než je hejtili. Když si zvyknu na ten nový model, tak ten gameplay mají furt stejný a účko má silnější ten Viktor teďka, že jo? Účko má trochu silnější, si myslím, určitě. Takže je docela win situace. Model je možná ale tak furt to je docela dobrý, si myslím. Furt jim jako kompletně nevymazali jednoho čempa a nenahradili ho novým jako gameplayově, aspoň gameplayově.
So you know what? Let's see what happens to that after all of this calms down. So then, to mock all the Viktor mains even more, Viktor got a new emote of the old Viktor showing heart. That one had really poor timing. The truth is, the pipeline for new emotes is just really long, so maybe they planned on this one releasing like half a month ago. But also, in a bit of solidarity, Riot went back, they listened to the feedback, and they changed the skins that people didn't like. And now...
To je stejný, ne? No, má masku. Ten armor na rameni má jiný. Trošku, že? O, to je všecko, ne?
They do look a bit better. It is still a massive change from the original one, don't get me wrong, but it is better. And that is where Viktor's VGU currently is. I'm saying this as if it's gonna change now. But yes, I am someone who absolutely loved the original Viktor, at least from the narrative side. And yes, I am mad that that version of Viktor is getting retconned. But also, I really like the new Viktor. It is still my favorite character from the entire show. And I do understand that the audience for...
Můj nejoblíbenější charakter je z Arcaneu, to asi víte co už. Kdyby Draven, který už je taky hromadu let, dostal nový VGU Rework, tak komunita se bude chovat úplně stejně jako Viktor Reddit. Jo, vždycky se nedává na nové věci. Hej, já si pamatuju, jak byl asi tak rok dozadu, možná míň. Ten novej líbí, že jo, ten jeho VGU. Tak jsem si taky říkal, že to je hnusný, to se mi vůbec nelíbí. Tak jsem si zahrál pár her a po pár hrách mi už nepřišlo, že tam je nějaký rozdíl, nebo jsem si na to úplně zvykl, ne? A actually mi to přijde jako dobrá změna. A nevím, vždycky prostě mají lidi v nátuře, že nemají rádi nové věci. Tak to prostě je, nebo prostě stárneme, boomerovatíme a boomři nemají rádi nové věci.
The new Viktor is now a lot bigger than the old one. Which is why that one meme that was posted on Reddit is so accurate. If Riot wanted to achieve digging Viktor out of not being played, I think they succeeded. But they shouldn't have done it at the cost of taking something else away. Even if in the...
Mají tady líbil hezčí staré, to už nevím, tyjo, asi netuším, možná.
Past, there were like 12 people playing the champion. Although, are they really taking away the old Viktor? Because after the VGU, in Legends of Runeterra, we got a new update for the old Viktor, who still stayed as the old Viktor.
Aha, takže Legends of Runeterra je furt starý Viktor.
And even the card game still has...
A v kardní hře je taky ten starý, no. Oni jsou mají takový bordel, kámo, jak mám dělat lore videa, když oni ani sami nevědějí, jako co.
The design of the old Viktor. So what on earth is going on here? But worst of all, with all of these changes, we lost Blitzcrank.
No. Viktor!
That's the biggest tragedy.